Yo, what's going on, Trojan family? What's up, Los Angeles? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, and we are your home for USC Trojans news. Thank you, as always, for making this a part of your day. Keeping you up to date on the latest in USC football recruiting. First and foremost, hope everyone had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. Hope everyone had a great time with family, friends, barbecuing, enjoying the beautiful weather, but most importantly, using it to reflect and remember, all of our brave heroes, men and women that have served, that paid the ultimate price for serving and protecting our liberties here in the U.S. And, just shout out to all the active service members, obviously, but Memorial Day is a day to reflect, and every day, really, to reflect on all the amazingly brave women and men that serve this country and serve us so that, I can sit here and talk on a microphone about football and you can do whatever it is that you do and whatnot. So the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate heroes, and so a huge thank you to all of our military members. My nephew, just want to give a shout out. My nephew just joined the U.S. Army, just finished his boot camp stationed over in Virginia now. So shout out to him, as that is a huge accomplishment. We're all super proud of him. And he's enjoyed it so far early on, but he made it through boot camp. He's 19 years old, so fresh out of high school. So very cool to see. But so everyone had a great weekend enjoying that and celebrating and remembering. Some recruiting news. Some of this stuff happened a few days ago, I guess you could say, but I wanted to at least touch on it, and then kind of some new, not necessarily intel, but some new kind of thoughts on a potential player that does not seem to be trending towards the Trojans anymore, and why that may be. So first, let's start with the offensive line, and kind of I'm trying to think when I recorded last, Wednesday, Thursday. Directly after that, two top prospects that the Trojans had been pursuing heavily, but also who had been kind of trending the whole time in favor of the Trojans, and that is both four-star. They're both four stars, I'd say, Malachi Lee and Samuel Utu. Both of them seemingly not in line to commit to USC anymore. Part of that, from what I have heard, is more of USC kind of moving on, or focusing on the players they do have committed, while also focusing on maybe some other options instead. So Malachi Lee, his final four he just came out with a few days ago: Michigan, Georgia, Texas, Alabama. USC not included there. USC was the entire, since like January, had been kind of the number one pole position to get his commitment. But I think because the tackles, Malachi Lee's a tackle, the tackles that have committed since then, recruiting is a very fluid game. Things change. Kenye Pepe has committed, obviously. He's the golden ticket, the 5-star that you make sure you do not lose. Vlad Diakonov, who's now upgraded to a 4-star. And Chase Denise, 3-star, who, guys I've talked to, some film I've watched, this guy's going to be a lot better than a 3-star. So tackle position-wise, I think USC is just really focused in on that. And so Malachi Lee, I think now is just kind of looking elsewhere because the Trojans have cooled a little bit on his recruitment in order to codify kind of what they have already in-house. And that same kind of goes for Samuel Utu, who I don't think released a top 4, but recruiting prediction now has shifted from USC to Washington, now being kind of the lead dog, the favorite. And I think it's very similar in line with USC kind of, I don't like saying moving on completely, but basically, focusing their sights elsewhere, kind of, focusing on who they have and a few other players that I'll mention. But neither of these guys have official visits set up, so I don't know if there was pushback on that anyway. Like, they were trying to get official visits for a few months now, and it just has taken too long, so then they moved on. That I don't know, so I don't really want to speculate. But they don't have official visits lined up, and seemingly sides have moved on. Nothing bad. That's how recruiting works, right? You can't land everyone. Everyone kind of forgets now that USC had so much momentum that some of these top guys now are looking elsewhere. Like, people forget, like, USC has 26 guys in the class. Yes, they want to get to 35. They want to add 9 more. But there's only so many people you can add. So, there's going to be times when people that you were pursuing, prospects that were being pursued, now both sides are going to kind of shift and say, okay, well, now it's not a fit anymore because of who we did end up getting committed. And we know USC's policy of, once guys commit, they're all in, not take any more visits. So seemingly, for the most part, again, I'm not going to sit here and say guarantee none of the 26 decommit. But I think it's going to be a very high hit rate of who's remaining right now makes it all the way to signing day. So I think I believe that with the leadership of Zach Hansen in the O-line room, plus obviously Lincoln Riley and Chad Bowden, I think they just feel really good about this offensive line class headlined by Kenny Pepe. I think they do want to add one or two more potentially, obviously, but I think they just feel really good about where it's at, maybe even more so than the outside perception is. And when you look at who has visits scheduled, I think there's really two guys that you can highlight. One still has an official visit, I think, scheduled. We'll see if that ends up getting canceled. I'll just mention at the top. Cody Green, 5-star. As of now, based on what On3 and 24/7 and who I've talked to, he's still scheduled to visit June 20th. I wouldn't hold my breath on him, though. Seems pretty locked in with Washington. Already flipped from Oregon to Washington. He's originally from the Pacific Northwest. So that one feels very unlikely that he were to flip. But as of now, from what I know, still has an OV scheduled. So never say never. But I think the two guys that SC's really kind of honed in on to hope to add and pursue, aside from the two that I mentioned that are kind of moving on, would be Brett Kolojoy, 4-star. Interior guy. He's roommates and teammates with Kenny Pepe at IMG Academy. Was kind of a tag-along visit on Kenny's last visit, and now he'll have his official visit on June 17th. So I think he is a big target for the Trojans to add. And then another one that I haven't heard a lot of talk about, but has an official visit scheduled for June 20th, and that's Jelaine Miller out of Arizona, 4-star as well. So a guy I think that also is someone that they're kind of keeping their eye on and has been quieter in the process in terms of names that everyone's talking about. But certainly, I think someone that USC is kind of keying in on as a potential add. And obviously, they're right now focused on who has these official visits because that's where a lot of the damage can be done on getting these guys to commit and adding to the class. So those two names, Kolojoy and Miller, would be the two that I would kind of look for as potential additions for the offensive line. But as I said, I think they feel really good about who they have. There's not a necessity or a panic, if you will, to add more. I think if the class ends how it is with this offensive line group, I think they're great sitting where they are, especially with the numbers, with how many they have committed, with the level of talent with Kenny Pepe at tackle, with Isan Tafa, who's their top interior guy, obviously adding more in the interior, big bodies, and some of these 3-stars, when you look at John Fafita, and as I mentioned, Chase Denise, some of these 3-stars that I think are really underrated, talented guys that they think they can get a lot out of. So I think they feel good about it. So I don't want anyone to panic when you see some of these top guys that have been linked to SC. All of a sudden, it's not just cooled. Basically, both sides have said, yeah, that's not happening anymore. I think there's very intentional reasons for that. The other one I wanted to mention quickly is on the defensive line. Again, another one that had been highly linked to USC is Kerry Wilder, local from Winnipeg, 4-star defensive lineman. Just released his official visit list and did not include USC. UCLA in there, Washington there, Notre Dame, Ohio State, but not USC. USC, again, since January, was the lead dog in the recruitment of Wilder. It was a heavy linking that he would ultimately end up committing and staying home. Now the leader based on these recruiting predictions, again, these are all, a lot of them are AI generated, so, but they are based on intel, based on visits and stuff like that. UCLA is actually kind of pulled into the league, which would be a great get for UCLA, but obviously Ohio State, Washington, Notre Dame, very much alive with the official visits scheduled. This is another one that is, I think, just USC, they have a 7-person defensive line class, 5 of those being, again, when you see DL and edge in recruiting, don't hold that as like the end-all be-all. We know USC is recruiting very versatile guys that can move all over. Obviously, some of these guys are for sure going to be interior guys. When you look at Tamahuni Tapui, when you look at Jamie Winfield, like those guys are interior dudes. But guys like Samote Katanga, listed as an edge, he can probably play. I wouldn't put him at nose, obviously, but he can play on that, 3 tech or 5 tech with an edge outside of him, but can also, I think, play on the true edge. So 7 total defensive line, 5 interior, 2 edge, but I just go with 7 defensive line because I think these guys can be really interchangeable throughout the D line. So I think Wilder is a guy that, Coach Rowe, whenever we do shows together, he talks about guys getting lost in the wash, and he's talking about guys on the roster that there's just a deep roster spot. They end up not getting playing time because they just get buried in the depth chart, and so they get lost in the wash, and that's why they end up hitting the portal. This is basically that to me just before ever committing. Like, the class has gotten big. It's 7. USC still going after guys, and I think they've keyed in on different targets now that maybe fill more needs or fill kind of more versatility that they want, or just guys they feel fit better and have kind of moved off of Wilder in that instance. Because, again, no visit. You look at the 7 guys committed, but then if you look at the official visit list, and again, I want to just preface this, these official visit lists are as of now. These are fluid. They can change. I mean, just today, Sincere, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but linebacker, 4-star linebacker at Ohio, announced today that he'll be announcing his commitment on June 19th. And on June 20th, he had an official visit scheduled with USC, and yet his announcement is coming the day before that visit, and USC was not in the top 3 of who he's going to choose. So some of these are fluid and can change. Some maybe have changed and just haven't been updated with kind of where I do my research. So don't take everything as biblical truth. But for the most part, at least we can get an idea. So you look at the 7 guys committed, and then they got 9 blue chip visitors scheduled for the month of June just on the defensive line. So I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Wilder, but it wouldn't be surprising if he sees, all right, there's already 7 guys I got to compete with. There's 9 more that are going to visits that are highly touted. Like, my best interest is if I'm not like absolutely dead set on USC and I have all these other options, like it might be better for my career to look elsewhere. People can call that, afraid to compete. And it's really just kind of a smart move on his part in reality. If it's just playing the odds, right? Obviously, you want to bet on yourself and go to the best place where you can be developed, which obviously we all believe USC is with this coaching staff. But USC could have been on the other end saying, hey, we've got all these guys. You should probably look elsewhere because it's best for you. They could have told them that. So quickly, when you look at the list of visitors, and I'll just go through these, 4-star Cameron Johnson on June 13th. He's currently an Alabama commit. So, don't necessarily hold your breath, but USC could look to flip him. 4-star edge, Dre Quinn, also on June 13th. These are the 2, and June 13th is a big weekend for defensive line. These are the 2 that I, as USC fans, would really kind of look for, is 4-star interior defensive line, Titan Davis, just named USC in his top finalists, and 4-star edge, Luke Waffle, also naming USC in his final list. He just got a in-home visit from the USC coaching staff. Those 2 are really interesting to me. So Davis and Waffle, I think, are guys that USC has really keyed in on, really likes their versatility, likes what they can bring to the defensive line. Titan can play inside or outside. I think Waffle can as well, but has that good speed from the edge. So those are 2 big ones. When you look at the next weekend on June 20th, you got Preston Carey, defensive line interior. Edge, Zach Graves, who's a Tennessee commit, but, again, look to flip him. Interior, Dylan Berryman, another guy that had a lot of momentum with USC from the state of Louisiana. Recently, recruiting predictions have come out and favored him towards Purdue, kind of surprisingly. Purdue sneaking up in there with heavy positivity, I guess, trending that way. But never say never. We know Coach Henney's connection with the state of Louisiana. We know Coach Henney's just prowess in recruiting. I wouldn't say it's over with Berryman. But the 2 guys I listed before that I think have a higher shot. But Berryman, as of now, again, this could change, I believe should be there June 20th. And then 2 more edges visiting on the 20th, Kevin Ford and Kamari Brooks. Again, all 4 stars. So just a loaded list of potential commits visiting. I keep saying this month. We're still in May, technically. Visiting in June at that position. So I like Kerry Wilder as a prospect. Love that he's a local kid from Winnipeg. But definitely, as I said about the offensive line position, no reason at all to be concerned. Definitely no reason to panic. I think it's just USC feels really strong about the 7 guys they have, and they've got their eyes on a lot of still top, high-quality blue-chip prospects to potentially add to that. Because, again, we've said, 7 now. Look for around 9 to 10 to be the finalized defensive line group. And, again, I'm adding edge and interior together. So I think they do want to add a couple more speed edge guys versus the true interior guys. So that's kind of what I would look for. So, little recruiting nuggets there for you guys. We'll be back here in just a couple days. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, 7 p.m., live call-in show with Tim Prangley and the Madman. So make sure to check that out live on the USC LAFB channel, 7 p.m. as always. We're in the heart of the offseason, but with USC, there's always stuff going on, always stuff to talk about. SC just won, the Collective Cup against UCLA that they compete for all the time. So, USC definitely running the city of LA, which is always great to see. Oh, and lastly, got to say, shout out USC baseball. Just made the NCAA tournament for the first time in forever. What a fantastic season they've had. They'll kick off their, I think, regional tournament up in Corvallis. So best of luck to USC baseball. Man, wouldn't that be fun, seeing them go on a run? I mean, it's already impressive. They're already ahead of schedule, I think, making the tournament. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I follow college baseball a ton, but certainly ahead of schedule. And so if they can continue building on that, special group. So it's just fun to see USC athletics continuing their rise of dominance in all over, campus. And now hopefully we see football get to that rise of where they should be and continue to be and stay at for now and for the foreseeable future. So thank you guys, as always, for hanging out with me. This is the USC LAFB show. I am Ryan Dyrud. Everyone have a fantastic week. I'll be back in just a couple days with any news that drops. And appreciate you as always. Fight on.